"Excuse me, are you Sierra?" The voice was small, confident, and completely unexpected. Sierra Brooks looked up from her phone, her polite smile already forming until she realized she wasn't looking at a waiter. She was looking at three identical little girls, no older than 5, standing at her table like they just walked off the set of a storybook. Blonde curls, matching red sweaters, wide, hopeful eyes. "We're here for our daddy," the second girl announced as if that explained everything. "He's really, really sorry he's late. There was a work emergency. That's why he isn't here yet." Sierra blinked. Once, twice. This wasn't how blind dates were supposed to go. The cafe was supposed to be quiet, romantic, a chance to see if her friend Jane was right about this mysterious man who had the kindest eyes and deserved someone special. But Jane never mentioned children, and she definitely never mentioned triplets. What Sierra didn't know, what no one could have predicted, was that these 3 little girls were about to rewrite the rules of love one brave, impossible plan at a time. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Sierra set her phone down slowly, her confusion giving way to something softer. Curiosity, maybe, or disbelief. "I'm sorry. Did you say your daddy sent you?" The first girl nodded enthusiastically, her curls bouncing. "Well, not exactly. He doesn't know we're here yet, but he's coming," the second chimed in. "We promise." The third smiled sweetly. "Can we sit with you? We've been waiting to meet you all week." Sierra glanced around the cafe. A few patrons had started to notice. An older woman smiled knowingly. A barista peeked over the counter, clearly entertained. "Okay," Sierra said slowly, gesturing to the empty chairs. "I think you'd better explain." The triplets climbed into the seats across from her, moving with a synchronized ease that only siblings, especially triplets, could manage. "I'm Arya." She extended a tiny hand like a seasoned businesswoman. "This is Nova, and that's Luna. We're 5, Nova added proudly. "And we're really good at keeping secrets," Luna whispered conspiratorially, "except this one." "Daddy's going to find out soon." Sierra couldn't help it. She laughed, a real surprised laugh that broke through the confusion. "All right, ladies, start from the beginning." "How do you know I'd be here?" Arya leaned forward, her expression serious. "We heard Daddy talking on the phone with Auntie Jane. He said he was going to meet someone named Sierra at Rosewood Cafe at 7:00. He sounded nervous, really nervous," Nova emphasized. "He kept fixing his tie in the mirror." Luna nodded sagely. "And he never fixes his tie. That's how we knew it was important." Sierra's heart did a little flip. She didn't know whether to feel charmed or concerned. "And you decided to come here instead of him." "Not instead. Before he had to go to work. Something broke and he had to fix it. But we didn't want you to think he forgot about you, because he didn't." Nova insisted. He was so excited this morning. He even burned the pancakes because he wasn't paying attention. "He always burns pancakes," Luna added matter-of-factly, "but today was worse." Sierra pressed her hand to her mouth, trying not to laugh again. These children were disarming in a way she hadn't expected. Honest, earnest, clearly adored. "So you convinced your nanny to bring you here?" The triplets exchanged a look. "We didn't convince her," Arius said carefully. "We may have told her that Daddy said it was okay, which he will," Nova added quickly. "Once he knows it worked." "Once, what worked?" Sierra asked, though she was beginning to understand. Luna smiled, a Gapto grin full of mischief and hope. "Our plan to make sure Daddy doesn't give up on being happy." Sierra leaned back in her chair, studying with 3 little faces across from her. They were watching her with an intensity that was amusing and touching. like they were waiting for her verdict on something far more important than a first date. "Your daddy?" Sierra began slowly. "Does he know you're here right now?" 3 heads shook in unison. "Is he going to be upset?" Arya considered this. "Maybe a little, but not for long. Daddy doesn't stay mad at us. He just gets this look. The I love you, but please don't do that again look. And then he hugs us." Luna finished. Sierra felt a warm spread through her chest. She didn't know this Dylan Grant yet, but she was already learning about him through the eyes of his daughters. A man who didn't stay angry, who hugged instead of yelled, who raised 3 confident, loving, brave little girls on his own. Jane hadn't mentioned he was a single parent, but now, sitting across from these children, Sierra realized why. Jane knew she'd hesitate, she'd overthink. She'd built walls around her heart after her engagement fell apart. And the last thing she thought she wanted was to step into someone else's complicated life. But walls, she was learning, had a hard time standing up to 5-year-olds with curls and matching sweaters. "Can I ask you something?" Sierra said gently. "Anything," Arya said. "Why is this so important to you? Why go through all this trouble?" The triplets went quiet. It was Nova who spoke first, her voice softer now. "Because Daddy's been sad for a really long time. He doesn't think we notice, but we do." Arya's eyes shimmered slightly. "He smiles when he's with us, but when he thinks we're not looking, he looks lonely." Sierra's throat tightened. She'd been lonely, too. She knew that look. "He takes care of us. He makes breakfast even when he burns it. He helps with homework. He reads us bedtime stories. He's the best daddy in the whole world, but he never does anything for himself," Luna said quietly. "Grandma says he's scared." "Scared of what?" Sierra asked, though she thought she knew the answer of getting hurt again, whispered Ariel. Sierra closed her eyes. Briefly, there it was, the missing piece. "Your mom," she said carefully, not wanting to overstep. "Is she?" "She's an actress," Arya said simply. "She's really famous now. We see her on TV sometimes." "She had big dreams," Nova explained. Her tone neither bitter nor sad, just factual, the way children accept truths they can't change. "Daddy says she loved us, but she loved acting more, and that's okay. People are allowed to choose." Sierra's heart broke and mended in the same breath. These children had been abandoned by their mother, and yet they spoke without resentment. They'd learned grace from their father even in the face of loss. "Daddy says we're enough," Arya added, "that he doesn't need anyone else, but we think he's wrong." "He deserves someone who stays," Nova said firmly. Luna reached across the table and touched Sierra's hand, her small fingers warm. "Auntie Jane says you're really nice and smart and kind. She says you'd be perfect." Sierra blinked back the sudden sting in her eyes. She hadn't expected any of this. "I don't know if I'm perfect," she said honestly, "but I'd like to meet your daddy real way when he's ready." "He's ready," all 3 said at once. "He just doesn't know it yet," Arya added with a knowing smile. 20 minutes later, the triplets had ordered hot chocolate, Sierra's treat, and were busy telling her stories. "One time, Daddy tried to braid our hair for school." Nova giggled. "It looked like a bird's nest." 3 birds' nests, Luna correctly, and they all dissolved into laughter. Sierra found herself laughing, too, the sound easy and unguarded. She hadn't felt this light in months, maybe years. "What about you?" Arya asked suddenly, tilting her head. "Do you have kids?" The question landed softly, but it still stung. "No," Sierra said, her smile dimming a fraction. "I don't. Do you want them?" Nova asked, her curiosity innocent. Sierra hesitated. This wasn't first date conversation. This wasn't even second or third date conversation. But these weren't ordinary circumstances, and these weren't ordinary children. "I did," she admitted quietly. "I always thought I would. But sometimes life doesn't work out the way we plan. Why not? Luna asked. Sierra took a breath. I was engaged once. We were going to get married, start a family, but he changed his mind. And then I found out that having kids might be difficult for me. The doctor said it's not impossible, but it's not likely either. The triplets absorbed this with the solemnity of much older souls. That's sad, Ara said softly. Yeah, Sierra agreed. It was, but I've made peace with it mostly. Nova reached out and patted her hand. Maybe you don't need to have kids. Maybe you just need to find some like us. Luna added hopefully. Sierra's breath caught. Before Sierra could respond, before she could even process the enormity of what these three little girls were offering, the door to the cafe swung open. A man stood in the doorway, breathless and wild-eyed, his tie askew and his short brown hair slightly disheveled. His gaze swept the room, landing on table in the corner, on three blonde heads bent over hot chocolate, and on the woman sitting across from them, her expression somewhere between shocked and enchanted. Oh no, Arya whispered. Here, Nova breathed. Luna grinned. Mission accomplished. Dylan Grant had experienced many kinds of panic in his 33 years. The panic of hearing three newborns crying at once. The panic of realizing his wife had walked out the door and wasn't coming back. The panic of a work deadline, a sick child, a lost shoe 5 minutes before school. But this was a new level entirely. He'd been in middle of a crisis at the firm, a server failure that threatened to wipe out a week's worth of data, when his phone buzzed once, twice, 7 times. The nanny's messages had grown progressively more frantic. Mr. Grant, the girls are insisting I take them somewhere. They said you approved it. Mr. Grant, we're at Rosewood Café. I think you should come. His heart had dropped into his stomach. Rosewood Café, the place where he was supposed to meet Sierra, the date he had already missed because of work. He'd sprinted out of the office, ignoring his assistant's protests, and driven faster than he should have, and now here he was standing in the doorway, staring at the most mortifying and inexplicably beautiful scene he'd ever witnessed. His daughters, his 3 mischievous, brilliant, impossible daughters, sitting with the woman he was supposed to impress, looking for all the world like they belonged there, and Sierra, because it had to be Sierra, even though he'd only seen one photo, was smiling, not the polite, strange smile of someone trapped in an awkward situation. A real smile, warm and genuine and slightly amused. Hi, Daddy, Luna called out, waving. The entire cafe turned to look at him. Dylan forced his legs to move, crossing the space in what felt like slow motion. When he reached the table, he didn't know whether to apologize first or collapse from embarrassment. I am so sorry. I had no idea they were coming here. I was at work, and there was an emergency. And Sierra held up a hand, her eyes twinkling. You must be the man who stood me up. Dylan winced, not intentionally. I swear I was going to call, but everything happened so fast. Daddy, Arya interrupted gently. She's not mad. We explained everything, Nova added, and she likes us. Luna said proudly. Dylan looked at Sierra, his expression somewhere between hopeful and horrified. I really am sorry. This is not how I wanted this to go. Sierra's smile softened. How did you want it to go? I don't know, Dylan admitted, running a hand through his hair. Less chaotic, more normal. Normal is overrated, Sierra said, and there was something in her voice, a hint of shared understanding of someone who'd also learned that life rarely went according to plan. Besides, your daughters are excellent company. They've been telling me all about you. Oh, no, Dylan muttered. Don't worry, Sierra laughed. Mostly good things except for the pancakes. The triplets giggled. Dylan closed his eyes briefly, then opened them to find Sierra still smiling at him. Not with pity, not with judgment, just warmth. Would you like to sit? She offered. I should probably take them home, though he didn't sound convinced. Or, Ariana said quickly, Sierra could come have dinner with us. That way, you still get your date, Nova reasoned, and we get to help. Luna finished. Girls, Dylan said, his tone gentle but firm. Sierra probably has plans. We can't just I don't, Sierra interrupted. Have plans? I mean, Dylan stared at her. I came here to meet someone, she continued, her gaze holding his, and technically, I did for someone's actually, so if the invitation still stands, I'd love it to come to dinner. The triplets erupted in cheers. Dylan's breath caught. For the first time in 3 years, the weight pressing against his ribs didn't feel quite so heavy. Okay, he said softly. Okay, let's go home. Dylan's house was exactly what Sierra expected and nothing like she imagined. It was cozy without being cluttered, lived in without being messy. The walls were covered with children's artwork, crayon drawings of flowers and rainbows and stick figure families. The fridge held a calendar covered in colorful magnets and reminders. Dance class, Luna's dentist, parent-teacher conference, date with Sierra. Sierra blushed when she spotted it, her name written in Dylan's careful handwriting, tucked between the ordinary rhythms of their life. He'd made space for her there among the doctor's appointments and school pickups, like she was already woven into the fabric of their days. The thought made her chest feel too full and too light all at once. It was a home built by a single father doing his best, and that vest, Sierra realized, was pretty extraordinary. Welcome to our castle, Arya announced, spreading her arms dramatically. It's not actually a castle, Nova clarified, but we pretend. Every house is a castle if you love the people in it, Luna said wisely. Dylan shot Sierra an apologetic look. They've been reading a lot of fairy tales. I love fairy tales, Sierra said and meant it. The girls dragged her on a tour while Dylan disappeared into the kitchen. They showed her their room, 3 beds arranged in a U shape, each with different colored blankets. They showed her their art corner, their toy chest, the bookshelf overflowing with stories, and they showed her pictures. That's us when we were babies. Arya pointed to a frame on the hallway wall. Daddy says we were very loud and very small. In the photo, a younger Dylan held 3 tiny bundles, his expression a mixture of terror and overwhelming love. There were other pictures too. Dylan and the girls at the park, at the beach, birthday parties, Halloween costumes. But there was one person conspicuously absent from every frame. Your mom, Sierra said carefully. You remember her? Not really, Arya admitted. We were really little when she left. Daddy keeps one picture of her in his room. He says it's important we know what she looks like. Even if we don't see her, Luna added quietly. Sierra's heart itched for them, and for Dylan, who'd been left to pick up the pieces alone. He must love you very much, Sierra said. He does, Arya said confidently. That's why we want him to be happy. He is happy, Noda insisted. But he could be happier with you, Luna said, looking up at Sierra with those impossibly hopeful eyes. Sierra knelt down to their level, her voice gentle but honest. I can't promise anything, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups need time to figure things out. But you like him, right? Arya pressed. Sierra thought about the man in the kitchen, frantically trying to cook dinner for 5. The man who'd raised 3 incredible daughters on his own. The man who still kept a picture of the woman who'd left him because he wanted his children to know their mother. I think, Sierra said slowly, your daddy is one of the good ones. The triplets beamed. Dinner's ready. Dylan called from the kitchen, or at least it's edible. Dinner was beautiful disaster. The pasta was slightly overcooked. The garlic bread was unevenly toasted. The salad was mostly just lettuce, but the company was perfect. The triplets talked over each other, telling stories and asking Sierra a million questions. Dylan interjected with corrections and apologies, his ears pink with embarrassment, and Sierra laughed, really laughed, the kind of laughter that comes from joy, not politeness. So, what do you do? Dylan asked during a brief lull, seizing the chance for actual conversation. I'm a CEO, Sierra said. I run a nonprofit that helps underprivileged kids access arts education. That's amazing, Dylan said, genuine admiration in his voice. It's fulfilling, Sierra agreed. I always wanted to make a difference, and since I couldn't have kids of my own, she stopped, realizing what she'd said. The table went quiet. Sorry, Sierra said quickly. That's not really dinner conversation. We already know. Arya said gently. You told us at the cafe. Dylan looked between Sierra and his daughters, understanding dawning. You told them, they asked. Sierra said with a small smile, and I'm not good at lying to children. Dylan's expression softened. I'm sorry. That must have been hard. It was, Sierra admitted. My fiancé left when he found out. He said it wasn't what he signed up for. Dylan's jaw tightened, a flash of anger crossing his face. He sounded like a jerk, Daddy. All three girls gasped in unison. No curse words, Arya reminded him, wagging her tiny finger. That's our family rule, Nova added seriously, even when people deserve it. Luna chimed in, though she nodded in agreement with her father's sentiment. Dylan held up his hands in surrender, his ears turning slightly pink. You're right, I'm sorry, girls. Sierra's heart swelled watching the exchange. These little girls holding their father accountable with such innocent conviction, and Dylan accepting the correction with grace and a sheepish smile. It's okay, Sierra said, her voice soft with emotion, and they're right. But between us adults, he kind of was. Dylan gave her a knowing look that said, I'm glad you see it, too. He taught me something important, though, Sierra said, her gaze moving around the table. What? Luna asked, leaning forward with curiosity. That family isn't just about biology, Sierra said, looking at each face around the table. It's about love and showing up and choosing each other every day. She looked at Dylan, and something passed between them, an understanding, a recognition of shared wounds that had started to heal. Yeah, Dylan said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. It is. After dinner, the girls insisted on showing Sierra their bedtime routine. Dylan tried to protest. She doesn't need to see the chaos, but Sierra waved him off. She watched as Dylan read them a story, his voice doing different characters, making them giggle. She watched as he kissed each forehead, tucking blankets with practiced ease. Love you, Daddy, they chorused. Love you more. He replied the same way he probably did every night. When he finally emerged, he found Sierra standing in the living room looking at the photos on the wall. Thank you, he said quietly, for being so kind to them. You didn't have to stay. I wanted to, Sierra said honestly. Dylan, your daughters are incredible. You've done an amazing job. I've done my best, he said, but some days I wonder if it's enough. It's more than enough, Sierra assured him. They're brave and kind and full of love. They got that from you. Dylan looked away, his jaw working. Their mother left when they were 6 months old. She was a rising actress, Melissa Hart. You might have heard of her. Sierra had, everyone had. Melissa Hart was everywhere these days. Magazines, movies, award shows. She never wanted children. Dylan continued, his voice low. But birth control failed and suddenly she was pregnant with triplets. She tried to make it work, but when they were 6 months old, she got a call about an audition, a big one, career-changing, and the girls were sick. I was at work. She had to choose and she chose the audition. Sierra finished softly. She said she'd send money visit, but after a year, even the calls stopped. Dylan's hands clenched. I don't resent her for choosing her dream, but I resent her for making them feel like they weren't enough. They don't feel that way. They know they're loved. Because of you, Dylan said, I made sure of that, but I've been terrified of bringing anyone into their lives. What if I choose wrong? What if someone else leaves and breaks their hearts? Dylan, Sierra said, stepping closer, I can't promise I won't make mistakes, but I can promise I know what it feels like to be left. And I'd never do that to someone else. He met her eyes, and for the first time all night, she saw the weight he carried, the fear, the hope. Jane was right, he said. You are special. So are you, Sierra whispered. They stood there, two people who'd been broken in different ways, recognizing something in each other that felt like the beginning of healing. Would you like to do this again properly? A real date? I'd love that, but fair warning. I might insist your daughters come along sometimes. They're kind of the best part of the package. Dylan laughed, and it was the sound of a man remembering what hope felt like. One date turned into 2, then 5, then too many to count. Sierra started showing up to dance recital, cheering louder than anyone else in the audience. She learned that Nova loved science experiments, that Arya was obsessed with books about space, and that Luna collected smooth rocks she found on the playground. Dylan started calling her after the girls went to bed, just to talk about work, about fears, about the small, ordinary things that made up a life. "They asked about you today," he said one night, his voice soft through the phone. "What did they ask?" "If you were going to be their new mom." Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, just heavy with possibility. "What did you tell them?" Sierra asked carefully. "I told them that's not how it works, that these things take time. But honestly, I hope the answer is yes someday." Sierra's heart squeezed. "Me too." By December, she was spending more time at Dylan's house than her own apartment. She'd help with homework while he cooked dinner. She'd read bedtime stories when he was running late from work. She'd become part of their routine without either of them quite noticing when it happened. One evening, as they decorated the Christmas tree, Luna tugged on Sierra's sleeve. "Can you come to our school concert? Daddy always comes alone, and we want you there too." Sierra looked at Dylan, who was untangling lights with Nova and Ariel. He caught her eye and smiled, a real smile that reached all the way to his eyes. "I'd love to," Sierra said. The night of the concert, Sierra sat beside Dylan in the crowded auditorium. When the triplets took the stage in their angel costumes, Dylan's hand found hers. He didn't let go, even after the final song ended. In the parking lot afterward, as the girls ran ahead to the car, Dylan stopped. "Thank you," he said. "For what? For staying, for showing up, for not running when things got complicated." Sierra squeezed his hand. "Dylan, this isn't complicated. This is exactly where I want to be." He kissed her then, soft and sure, under the glow of Christmas lights strung across the school entrance. From the car, 3 small voices erupted in cheers. The months that followed were filled with quiet moments that built something stronger than passion. They built partnership. Sierra learned Dylan took his coffee black and hated mornings. Dylan learned Sierra sang off key in the car and cried at happy endings. They had their first fight when Dylan canceled date night because of work again. Sierra told him he couldn't keep putting himself last. Dylan admitted he was afraid that if he stopped moving, stopped working, he'd remember how lonely he'd been. "You're not alone anymore," Sierra said firmly. "Let me carry some of it with you." And slowly, carefully, he did. By spring, the girls had stopped asking when Sierra would visit. They'd started asking when she was coming home. And one evening, as Sierra helped Luna with her math homework, while Dylan made dinner and Arya and Nova argued over what movie to watch, she realized something. She was already home. 1 year later, the same cafe looked different. Twinkling lights hung from the ceiling. Mistletoe dangled over doorways. The smell of cinnamon and pine filled the air. Sierra walked in, her heart already racing. Jane had texted her to meet at Rosewood at 7, claiming it was important. She'd been cryptic, refusing to elaborate. But when Sierra pushed through the door, she understood. Dylan stood near their old table, dressed in a suit, his hands fidgeting nervously, and beside him, 3 little girls in matching red dresses, holding a sign, "Say yes, Sierra." Sierra's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. Surprise, the triplets yelled in unison. Dylan laughed nervously, stepping forward. The cafe fell silent. Other patrons paused, recognizing the moment for what it was. "Sierra," Dylan began, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "A year ago, I was terrified. Terrified of trying again, of failing again, of letting someone in who might leave. But Daddy didn't fail," Arya whispered loudly. SHH, Nova hissed. Sierra laughed through her tears. Dylan dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. You didn't just accept me. You accepted all of us. You showed up to dance recital and bedtime stories. You held me when I doubted myself. You became the person I didn't know I needed. And we love you, Luna added. So much, Arya agreed. So much, Nova emphasized. Dylan opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring. Sierra Brooks, will you marry me? Will you let us be your family? The cafe held its breath. Sierra looked at Dylan, the man who taught her that broken hearts could still love, then at Arya, Nova, and Luna, the three little girls who'd barged into her life and refused to let her hide. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes, the cafe erupted in applause. Dylan stood, sliding the ring on her finger, and pulled her into a kiss. The Triplet swarmed them, wrapping their arms around their legs. We're getting married, Arya shouted. We're going to be a real family, Nova squealed. I told you the plan would work, Luna said smugly. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and steady, blanketing the world in quiet promise. Sierra pulled back from Dylan, her forehead resting against his. I can't have biological children, she reminded him softly. I know, Dylan said, gesturing to the three little girls beaming up at them. But you already have these three, and they already have you. Arya tugged on Sierra's dress. Can we call you Mom now? Sierra's breath hitched. She knelt down, gathering all three girls into her arms. If you want to, she whispered. We want to, they said together. And just like that, Sierra Brooks, who'd thought her story had ended, realized it was only just beginning. Because love, she learned, doesn't always arrive the way you expect. Sometimes it arrives 3 years late in matching pink sweaters, carried by three little girls brave enough to believe their broken-hearted father deserved a second chance. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it stays. Friends, if this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Soul Lift Stories for more heartwarming tales. Drop a heart in the comments if you believe in second chances, and share this with someone who needs to remember that family is built on love, not just biology.